Once upon a time, in a quiet suburb where the houses whispered secrets to the wind, lived Eleanor Hayes, a woman of 68 whose hands still bore the faint scars from decades of labor. She had built her life from the ground up, first as a seamstress mending dreams into fabric, then as a single mother after her husband vanished one rainy night with their savings and a younger woman's smile. Eleanor raised her daughter, Lydia, with the kind of love that bends but never breaks. She skipped meals so Lydia could have dance lessons, worked double shifts to afford the prom dress that made her daughter feel like a queen, and turned their modest bungalow into a sanctuary filled with laughter, homemade pies, and bedtime stories that chased away the monsters under the bed. But time has a way of twisting roots. Lydia grew into a sharp-edged woman, a corporate lawyer with a penthouse view and a heart armored in ambition. She married well, a banker named Victor who spoke in stock quotes and golf scores, and they had 2 children who called Eleanor Nana but rarely visited. When Lydia's career soared, she convinced Eleanor to sell her little shop and move in with them. "It's for your own good, Mom," Lydia said, her voice smooth as polished marble. "You're getting older. We can take care of you." Eleanor agreed, not because she needed help, but because she saw the plea in her daughter's eyes, the unspoken fear of being alone in a big, empty life. At first, it was bearable. Eleanor cooked family dinners, folded laundry with the precision of a woman who knew every crease told a story, and read to her grandchildren until their eyelids fluttered shut. But Lydia's gratitude soured like milk left in the sun. "Mom, you're in the way," she'd snap when Eleanor lingered too long in the kitchen. Victor would roll his eyes, muttering about extra baggage. The grandchildren, sensing the tension, began to mimic their parents' disdain, pushing away Eleanor's hugs with whines of "You're too clingy, Nana." The breaking point came on a crisp autumn evening. Lydia sat Eleanor down in the sterile glow of the living room lamp, a brochure for Golden Meadows Retirement Community clutched in her manicured hands. "We've decided it's time, Mom. You can't stay here forever." Victor's stressed, the kids need space, and frankly, you're becoming difficult. Her words landed like quiet daggers, no raised voice, just that clinical calm that slices deeper than fury. Eleanor stared at her daughter, searching for the little girl who'd once clung to her skirts during thunderstorms. "What did I do wrong?" she wondered silently. But she said nothing, her lips pressed into a thin line, because some pains are too vast for words. That night, as Lydia and Victor discussed renovations over wine, turning Eleanor's room into a home gym, Eleanor retreated to her bedroom, a converted guest suite that felt more like a storage closet. She didn't cry. Instead, she pulled out an old leather-bound journal from under the mattress, its pages yellowed with age. In it, she had documented everything, the deeds to the bungalow she'd never fully sold, keeping it as a rental for just in case, the savings account she'd squirreled away from her sewing days, and the life insurance policy from her vanished husband that had matured into a modest nest egg. Lydia knew none of this. She'd always dismissed her mother as simple, too naive for finances. Eleanor remembered the years, the sleepless nights nursing Lydia through fevers, the second jobs to pay for college tuition, the way she'd eaten plain rice so her daughter could have stayed. And now, this. "You're going whether you like it or not," Lydia had added earlier, as if Eleanor were an outdated appliance to be discarded. The phrase echoed in her mind like a death knell. But in the quiet hours before dawn, anger bloomed into resolve. If Lydia wanted to erase her, Eleanor would erase herself first, on her own terms. The next morning, Eleanor rose before the sun, brewing coffee as usual. Lydia rushed through breakfast, barking orders, "Pack light, Mom. The facility has everything." Eleanor nodded meekly, but inside, gears turned. While the family was out, Lydia at court, Victor at the office, kids at school, she made her move. She called an old friend, Miriam, a retired teacher who'd once shared Eleanor's sewing circle. Miriam had always said, "If you ever need an escape hatch, my door's open." Now, Eleanor took her up on it. Miriam arrived in a beat-up station wagon, her face lined with quiet strength. "You deserve better, Ellie," she said, helping load a single suitcase filled not with clothes, but with documents, cash, and a few cherished photos. They drove to the bungalow, which Eleanor had kept in pristine condition through renters. It was hers, fully paid off, title in her name alone. Lydia had never bothered to check, she assumed it was long gone. Over the next week, hidden in the bungalow's cozy embrace, Eleanor transformed. She sold off family heirlooms Lydia had deemed junk, a vintage sewing machine, silver candlesticks from her grandmother, an antique clock that ticked like a heartbeat. Each sale funneled money into a new account. Miriam helped her update her will, leaving everything to a women's shelter that aided survivors of emotional abuse. "No more chains," Eleanor whispered as she signed. Lydia discovered the absence that evening. She called Eleanor's name through the house, her voice rising from confusion to fury. In Eleanor's room, she found a note on the pillow, "You said I was going whether I liked it or not. So I went. The house you live in? It's yours now. Without me in it. But remember, a mother's love isn't a debt you collect. It's a gift you earn. I've earned my freedom. Goodbye, Lydia." "Mom." Panic set in. Lydia tore through drawers, called banks, even hired a private investigator. But Eleanor had vanished like mist. The investigator reported the bungalow's sale. Eleanor had listed it quietly, pocketing a tidy sum before disappearing. Lydia's calls went to voicemail, the number was disconnected. Victor grumbled about the drama, but secretly relished the extra space. The children asked once where Nana went, then forgot amid their gadgets. Months later, in a seaside town hours away, Eleanor woke to the sound of waves. Miriam had connected her to a network of women like herself, resilient souls who'd reclaimed their stories. She rented a tiny cottage overlooking the ocean, its walls painted in soft blues that matched the sky. She sewed quilts for local markets, swam in the mornings, and joined a book club where laughter flowed freely. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she received a letter from Lydia, begging, pleading, laced with accusations. "How could you do this to us? We need you." Eleanor read it once, then fed it to the fire in her hearth. The flames danced, warming her bones. Lydia, back home, unraveled thread by thread. The gym sat unused, dust gathered where Eleanor's presence once warmed the air. She burned dinners, snapped at the kids, argued with Victor until their marriage frayed. At night, she'd stare at old photos, whispering, "What did I do?" But deep down, she knew. She'd treated her mother like a relic, forgetting that relics hold power. Now, the silence in the house was her inheritance, a hollow echo of what she'd lost. Eleanor, meanwhile, danced barefoot on the beach, her gray hair whipping in the wind. She wasn't vengeful, she was whole. For the first time, her life was her own story, not a footnote in someone else's. And in that freedom, she found the peace that no facility, no inheritance, could ever buy. A daughter's presence, after all, is worth more than any control, and Lydia had learned that the hard way. A mother is not a doormat, a bank account, or an inconvenience to be managed. She is a human being who carried you in her body, fed you with her sacrifice, and loved you when you were unlovable. When you treat her like property, you don't just lose her presence, you lose the only unconditional love you'll ever know. And one day, when the house is empty, the coffee is cold, and no one is there to pick up your broken pieces, you'll finally understand, you didn't inherit her life. She let you live in it. And she can take herself back whenever she chooses. Never forget. The moment you decide a mother is disposable, she becomes the one thing you can never replace.